AI has hurt the modern seller more than it's helped it. All of the channels available to us have been saturated with AI slop. How do you get through the noise is way more difficult than it's ever been. And we have one thing to thank for that, and it's AI.
The Next Gen Sales Leaders Podcast. Coffees for Closers.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Next Gen Sales Leader Podcast. My name is Ben Reed. I'm here with Josh Gillespie. He is the former sales director of PandaDoc, and he's recently led as the head of growth of Aomni. He's off to better and bigger things, and he's in stealth, so we can't talk about his next project yet. But welcome to the show, because I know you are a wealth of experience when it comes to sales training, enterprise AE team building. So I would love to hear your story.
Awesome. Yeah. Where do I start? Childhood, college, first job?
Yeah, I'm curious. So you're actually one of the first guys on the podcast that is really purely in the sales role and the sales management role. And so I generally have a lot of GTM people on, especially agency owners. So, I'd love to hear kind of the story of, how did you get into sales? What led you to PandaDoc? As one of the founding AEs over there. And that story I think is very interesting, especially for anybody who's coming up and getting into sales and also is going along that trajectory of sales management and sales leadership.
Oh, 100%. And I think I had kind of a non-traditional route into my various sales and selling roles throughout time. So happy to kind of share, because I think if I can inspire anyone else to take a chance and to get into the field, they'll similarly create opportunity for themselves that can be life-changing and very rewarding. So like every salesperson, right? Like I grew up wanting to be a salesperson as a kid. Psych. No. I was a philosophy major in college.
Me too.
Really awesome. There you go. I was a social worker as my first job out of college in San Francisco, which was like, $35,000 a year job. And it was really because of necessity where I started looking around me, being in, Silicon Valley in the Bay Area, seeing all sorts of people that I went to school with making six figures in tech. I wasn't really interested in tech. I wasn't interested in sales. But I think I've always been a genuine builder of relationships as a person. And that as a foundation is what has always served me well. If I go back and, I'm kind of a knight of the old guard now. I just turned 42. My first sales job was in 2008 at pre-IPO Yelp, which was a really interesting experience, to say the least. It was a boiler room, right? Make 150 dials a day. You had to have 3 or 4 hours of call time. I think 1 out of 750 phone calls that year for me was a one deal. So just dealing with a lot of defeat, but pick the phone up and keep going, and probably a good place, right, to kind of cut my teeth as a first sales role, but also didn't make me fall in love with the profession. And again, I just, I didn't know if that's what I wanted to do after that job. But Yelp was a big brand. It got on my resume. I had some good references there. And ultimately that helped get me other jobs at other startups along the way. The next one was really influential on me. It was a failed startup, but I got to work for a company that had a who's who kind of investment board of Silicon Valley advisors and VCs. And so I really kind of learned the game through that process back in 2010, before I started at PandaDoc. So finally, if you've heard of PandaDoc, they do e-sign and proposal software, mostly for SMBs. I started in 2013, true startup story, 3 guys in my CEO's apartment here in the Bay Area in Daly City, just kind of trying to hack something together. They had already built a pretty cool proposal engine product, but the team was from Belarus and, really good technical founders, but not really so great on the phones, or kind of trying to figure out how to go to market or how to sell it or how to compete versus, all the other, potential options that existed at that time. I think time and place, we didn't know really what we were doing. We were just hacking away, built an amazing product, probably then benefited, right, from this time period we fondly now refer to as the ZIRP era where software is eating the world. Hundreds of companies are growing and getting to IPO every quarter. It's a different time period, right? Geez, what is that? About 12 years ago, 13 years ago, when that endeavor started. But it was the ride of a lifetime because I got to see it grow from $0 in revenue when I started all the way up close to 100 million in revenue over a 10-year period. Got to a Series C, got the $1 billion valuation, got to see shares grow from 5 cents to $58, right? As part of a secondary transaction, which changed my life. So yeah, like a pretty awesome 10-year ride. But I have to acknowledge, for those who are in the game today, it's starting to feel like a very much different macro environment for the technical seller. And so, yeah, excited to talk to you guys today about, some of that stuff.
This is a break in the podcast to bring you our sponsor, RevyOps.com. That is REVYOPS.com, the #1 GTM data management platform for your GTM and revenue operations data on planet Earth. If you are using the modern stack of Clay and Instantly and Email Bison and RB2B and Trigify and all these various tools scattered across the wind, we unify all that data all into one place so you don't have any duplicates, a unified view of every single contact so you can see all the data and all the activities across all the platforms all in one place. It will allow you and your team to move faster, to get better attribution across the entire funnel, and to make a heck of a lot more money. Go to RevyOps.com, check out how you can get started today with me on a call where we'll learn about your data management problems and how we can get you guys to the next level of growth. See you guys at RevyOps.com. Go there now. It will be in the show notes as well down below. Let's get back to the podcast. Yeah, super, super interesting because you're right. It's a different world. So you called it ZIRP. I feel kind of ashamed that I don't even know what that is. So I'm going to say it for everyone else. What the hell is ZIRP?
Zero interest rate, period. Okay. When I started in sales in 2008, the economy was in a similarly kind of tough spot, not so great. And so sales were really tough. But as the economy kind of grew and interest rates went down, investment in startups became easier, funding became easier. Anyone could start a software startup and probably get to at least a successful seed round as long as they had a decent, minimal viable product, right, that they've built. So yeah, it was just a different time.
And so you feel like that because of the fact that the economy was growing, SaaS as a model was still within the first 2 decades, I guess you could say, which seems like a long time, but in the grand scheme of reality, it's probably a pretty tight window.
Sure.
And so you think that because of this kind of bounce off of the Great Recession, is that what they called it, 2008, and then you guys came out, and that there was a rising tide, so to speak, and there was a lot of capital in the market to support the growth, and so VC funds were willing to take action, and you see that as much different, it sounds like, in the world that we live in today.
Yeah, I mean, just actually, right, back then in the aughts, like I said, hundreds of companies are going IPO. There's hundreds of new millionaires being minted in San Francisco every month just by virtue of being an early employee at a unicorn. Thousands of unicorns, right, were being created with billion-dollar valuations. Now, how many companies are going IPO in the tech space every year? It's like a handful. So that's indicative, I think, of the ceiling being lower. Also, a lot of M&A activity has occurred. A lot of consolidation in the space has occurred, which, yeah, I just don't think probably equity for new salespeople isn't as lucrative as part of the compensation package as it used to be during that era. Hopefully that changes. I think a lot of people feel strongly about AI or strongly about crypto or strongly about quantum or whatever the next, technical paradigm shift is. But it's different, to say the least. Yeah.
I'm interested in knowing what was a comp package? Because for me, I've been a chief revenue officer, I've been a sales director manager as well, but I worked in a much different world than you did. I came from kind of middle America, Houston, Colorado, North Dakota, living kind of in that region. The market is much different than Silicon Valley. It wasn't venture-backed companies I was working at, although we had some investors.
Yeah.
So the comp packages, I would assume, are completely different than what you dealt with. So I'm curious, what was a typical offer for a new founding AE at a large venture-backed company or even a seed round company out of San Francisco in those times?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, in 2008, my base compensation was 35K a year at Yelp. Um, the next startup I had a couple years later
What role
was
was that?
just an AE.
A.
Yeah, just small business
What was
dialer.
the commission rates?
We were trying to close monthly deals for the most part. Each monthly deal, if we closed one for $500, it would count like times a 7x multiplier. So it would count towards $3,500 towards your like $15,000 quota. So you just had to get like 4 or 5 deals, like one deal a week, basically, to like meet your quota. And then if you met it, it wasn't actually like a 50-50 OTE split like you usually see today. I think if I met my minimum quota, I'd probably make like an extra 15, 20 grand a year back then.
Wow. Well, they were highway robbery over there.
It was just a completely different era. Like it's crazy. Like they probably still had 99-cent Whoppers back in 2008.
Yeah.
Like money is just worth less. It probably sounds like so long ago, right? If you're in your
Yeah.
20s and you were like in grade school in 2008. But yeah, it's just things were cheaper. Compensation packages were, accordingly. And then yeah, as I kind of grew my tenure, because that was my entry level AE role. But as I grew into, having more status or having more success and kind of going from role to role, it kind of always gradually went up. And then, yeah, over the course of 10 years at PandaDoc, I made millions accumulated over that time. And also kind of as the company grew, really where I made a lot of money was in the variable comp, right? In the commissions. That's where you make most of your money. Yeah.
I'm always fascinated by comp because it's like we don't have to go deep into the comp world in terms of like sales. But like you said, 50-50 OTE is pretty standard nowadays. But I've seen some crazy comp packages, like weird acceleration things and like strange draws. And it's interesting that you bring it up because it was like, for you guys, it sounded like monthly relatively small packages, relatively low average order value. And then there's completely and wildly different comp packages. For example, in the oil and gas industry, I've seen it range from, 120K base to like 220K base. And then the OTE is like 400 plus K, on the enterprise side, a minimum.
Most fishy.
And so,
Yeah.
but is that normal
yeah.
in San Fran, those bigger
It
deals?
depends, right? It depends on what you're selling. If it's like some 7 or 8 figure true enterprise ticket item, probably then you can assume that the sales cycles are 6 months to a year or longer. I've seen, right? When deal sizes exceed $1 million. So if that's the job, then you kind of do have to account for that ramp period and probably compensate someone more on the base. When I was at PandaDoc early on, they actually gave me 2 options. Do you want the one that's heavier on the equity or heavier on the cash? And as a guy who was, a single income provider, for a family in the Bay Area, I was like, give me the cash because nothing is promised. In hindsight, right, I probably should have took the equity because PandaDoc became a $1 billion company. And I still had a good amount of equity anyways, but you can always play these games, right? Going back in time, wishing you had negotiated differently, knowing what you know now, but hindsight's 2020.
That's so funny because I have a software company called RevOps, and we have one of my early employees, in some senses almost like a co-founder, but still, came in about 7-8 months after the thing got started, and I'm telling him, I'm like, look, man, like, I can give you more equity, and he's like, I don't know, I think I want the cash, and I'm just like, all right, well, we're a $1 billion company, you'll remember this moment, so I'll have to clip this.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, it's a tough decision to make in that moment because when you run the math or when you ask chat, it's like, what percentage of seed funded startups in San Francisco get to $1 billion valuation? And that's
None.
like what 0.0025 or something crazy. So, but yeah. No regrets. I do think, though, to your question, the sales role, especially in my space, in tech, in San Francisco, it's evolving, right, because of AI. So probably it is worth more to be a successful sales rep given that the landscape is more difficult to close overall. There's tools that a lot of revenue leaders are turning to see if they can compete with their human sellers or their SDRs, their sales development representatives. So it's getting a little weird because probably the future seller does look something like a cyborg where they can have conversations still and be a human to human seller, but also leverage new technologies that make like the org spend less on their resources. Like to be an efficient enterprise seller 10 years ago, I needed to have an inbound SDR, an outbound SDR, a solution engineer, a backup solution engineer in case he was, sick, a whole legal team to review all the contracts and go back and forth on red lines, a couple other resources to help me respond to 1,000-page RFP questionnaires, security questionnaires. It took a whole village, it took a whole team, right, to kind of complete all the tasks required to move a 6 or even definitely a 7 or 8-figure partnership forward. And that's now, right, you're spending $1 million a year on that team to close those deals. So I think in the future, especially for enterprise or mid-market, you need to be your own best resource in a lot of ways. And those that can figure that out are super sellers.
Yeah, no doubt. For anybody who hasn't sold enterprise, like super enterprise, like $1 million plus type deals, $10 million type deals, getting one of those RFPs, those like 80-page RFPs, is like the worst. It's like, it's good because you're in the game, but it's like I have spent days writing these detailed answers to these questions, and it makes me not want to sell enterprise because like everyone thinks, oh my god, but you sold a $2 million deal or four, and like holy shit, you made $200,000.
Did you ever win an RFP, by the way?
Did I what?
Did it ever work out? Like when you spent all that time on an RFP,
no,
did you
never.
ever actually win one? Exactly. So this is maybe one of the best takeaways, right? If you're a new seller and you're in enterprise sales and you receive an RFP out of nowhere from an account, or you're maybe the business received one and they send it to you, hey, new guy, fill this out. Rip that thing up. Like, I know it's not paper probably anymore, but rip it up, throw it in the trash. We do not participate in unqualified RFPs. These are just a business that has some incumbent solution that's then polling the field to get pricing information back for the most part to see if they can then put in an initiative in place for change if it makes sense, but more likely going to use that information to go back to their incumbent and say, hey, we're thinking about leaving you because we discovered A, B, and C. Let's work out a better deal, you and I. The only way I've ever won an RFP historically is when I actually helped my champion create one as part of their business case, right? Because in order to get a deal done with me, they need to prove to their bosses that they did their due diligence. But now when I'm involved, I can help them curate and craft that RFP so that it speaks to my differentiators, my go-to-market alpha, as we call it. And then that's the only way that you win those. You actually have to be involved in drafting them. So keep that in mind. Some of the best sales advice I've ever gotten from Tibco and Raj Verma, who I got to participate in his enterprise sales training like 15 years ago, luckily, changed my life. First thing he said is, we're in the business of disqualification. Single best sentence any seller could remind themselves of every day, right? Because we're humans, we only have so much time. We all smoke the hopium in sales when people say nice things to us. We have to be aggressively disqualifying in an RFP, just receiving one out the blue. You have to disqualify that. There's no real opportunity there.
100%. Couldn't have said it better myself. And I love the hopium idea. That's so funny. I like the AGM, another good meeting. And so it's like every time we'd come off, be like, AGM. It's like, I had some great meetings today, man. And it's like, that is the reality. And it is true. The hopium is a real drug. It is, because it feels good to have conversations. Just talking to a human being feels good. Even if you lose, because most people in enterprise dynamics, they're not going to be mean. they're typically just going to look at you. Most of the time, in my experience, everyone stays shut up. You know, like you ask questions and the whole group kind of like looks at itself. So for me, it's like, that's not where deals are won. And I think that the key thing is, like, for anybody listening, I know most people listening are probably not enterprise focused, but it's like, if you're not doing what I call the Green Beret detective work for months before that meeting, then you've already lost. Like, if you have 10 people in a room that you just herded in and some random guy just stood up a meeting and you're now pitching and you think you have this big opportunity, you are wasting your time. Very likely, everyone's going to come off that call. They're going to say, what do you think? I don't know. And then that's the end of it. It's not that they don't like you. It's not that there's no initiative. There's no champion. There's no buying driver. There's none of that. And so for me, the art of enterprise or any mid-market deal is, you got to go do the research. It's 1,000 conversations. You're the guy in the Game of Thrones or the Whisperer behind the scenes. And by the time you come to the meeting, you got to be like, oh, Bob, have you met Sam? Sam, Frank, this is Bill from, procurement, and you're the guy who actually knows the org better than they do.
I'd say 80% of my time as an enterprise seller was spent not on calls, not with human to human stuff, just hours and hours of preparation of, and in an enterprise company, they have a ton of public information that you can go get, whether it's their earnings statements that you can read through, which speak to their strategic initiatives, what they care about, speak to the problems they have. All of it's there. It's public information, and it comes out once a quarter. On top of that, they probably have thousands of employees, thousands of Glassdoor reviews where you can go to get employee sentiment, right? Go find the problems where they're written about. Go on social media, follow the executives on LinkedIn, see what they're posting about. It's all about relevance, right? And accumulating evidence of opportunity. So I like the word you used as kind of a detective, because that's exactly right. This is an investigation, and there are, in business world, like when you're in the classroom, there's no such thing as stupid questions, right? We're in a learning environment. When you're in the business world, there's a lot of stupid questions you can ask in those settings. And they're the ones that infer that you didn't do your homework. Oh, remind me, how many employees again do you guys have? Oh, what are your big, blockers this quarter? Like, you should come well informed. And if you're already kind of at second base, it's a lot easier to get to home, right? So.
Yeah, 100%. So let's turn our attention to today. You alluded to earlier in the conversation that it's a much different world and things are changing today. So give me the 20,000 foot view. What do you see having happened over the last several years? Where are we at right now in selling? If you could give some context into, like, what is the scenario? What industries are we talking about, or what sales cycles, or what size? That kind of would help.
Yeah, for me, I was a SaaS seller, very successful over a long period, but I felt the AI wave coming, right? And I've also been a user of like ChatGPT and other Claude and other AI products from early on. So I kind of felt that there's this potential that, of course, is pretty bloviate at this point, with everyone, talking about this inevitability of this magic software that's going to change our lives. And so I started getting FOMO as someone who had just turned 40. And I said, dang it, I need to go work for an AI startup, get under the hood of this stuff, try to sell it, try to figure it out, kind of stay up to speed with where the technical founders are. And so I did that. And so I joined Aomni, which is a 4-person seed-funded startup. We raised $4 million in Q1. And they were doing account-based research for enterprise sellers, which, to our point, right, takes hours and hours and hours to look through, all your repositories and online for the evidence you need. They built a really cool tool that looks at all public-facing data and then finds relevant stuff for you as pieces of evidence that you can latch onto to then create an opportunity. And so I thought this was super cool. We did it for a few months. We, got up to over $250,000 in ARR pretty quickly. So things were on like $1 million trajectory for our first year, which I thought was great. But then we kind of decided to pivot, right? And I think this is a challenge in the current space where a lot of startups, a lot of tech companies have technical founders that need to kind of rebuild their technology every time, like the large language models update, right? Like ChatGPT is coming up with a new and improved version every few months. Gemini's doing the same. The large models are all racing, which I think just makes it very difficult to build a consistent product in the application layer that can then be sold in a consistent, repeatable, scalable way. So without kind of the product itself being standardized, we ended up, building that. We built custom AI agents. We built an infrastructure product to give agents access to legacy systems. We pivoted basically 5 times in the last year. And inevitably, I thought, this is weird. Like, how can any AI startup outside of a few get past 5 or 10 million bucks if they keep having to re-architect like their product from the ground up? And so, yeah, it's just getting weird because I, at PandaDoc, for example, really benefited from a consistent product getting better over time and growing its user base. And we had a very repeatable, scalable motion that we were able to benefit from. Now, I'm not so sure sellers are having the same success given all the changes in this paradigm. And I also encountered a host of other new issues that I was finding to be interesting. For example, we had a great product. We were trying to sell it on annual deals. Usually we'd have at least a user or two already paying out of pocket for our service before we would approach their leadership. So it was kind of a groundswell approach. 19 times out of 20, they would get blocked. Oh, we don't want to sign an annual deal with this provider because who's to say, ChatGPT won't just release their product tomorrow. So everyone wants to go month to month because of the speed of innovation right now. So we're also not able to as easily lock in long-term contracts. Also, I think ChatGPT has set a precedent of giving you magical value for basically free. So even though this technology, it can be really, really cool and monumental in a lot of ways when leveraged appropriately, people don't want to pay for it.
Yeah.
And they definitely don't know how to control it, and they don't know enough about it to feel confident in buying it, even if you show them the magic they want to see. So it's hard to sell AI products for a whole new host of reasons that I wasn't expecting until I started attempting to.
That makes a lot of sense. I will say that in a different realm, in the GTM realm, because again, we sell rebiops.com, which is a kind of a central, it's called a CDP, which is a kind of an old idea from kind of the D2C aggregating all of your data world. But in the B2B world, it's specifically for outbound GTM with the new tool stack like Clay and Instantly and all these other tools. It's the first one out there. But what I found in now going to the market, and we're doing well, but it's just, there is a objection. And the objection is, I'll just go build it myself. Now, I think it's a false belief, meaning that the weird thing that's happened with AI, and this is a very subtle but important point that I think cannot be understated, which is what you're saying as well, which is AI and the promise of AI. It's like you said, hopium. It's like hopium for AI, which is like the promise of AI is so massive. People don't truly understand the limits. So there is this kind of belief. I think there's a bias towards it will just be like God. That's the bias. Now, because we're too early in the cycle of knowing, the hype cycle has not popped yet. We're riding the curve upwards, and there's a lot of tools, Lovable and Cursor, and all these different flows of
the B2C
stuff.
tools, the dev tools. Yeah, there's some great stuff. Yeah.
And so, but it gives people the perception that building SaaS applications is easy. And so then you have Johnny, who just came out of school, or guy who's like in his mid-30s who's like, I'm going to start a company, and they're like, I'm going to go just vibe code this. Or I'm running an agency. I'm just going to build this thing rather than buy this thing. What people don't seem to understand is that you can do a bunch of small little subtle things. In the front end, you can fully do an AI. It's amazing. But that's not the hard part. The hard part is the architecture. The hard part is the integrations layer. The hard part is the security. The hard part is the, all the other subtle things, the user permissions and things that actually matter, which is DevOps and architecture and back end. And so people don't understand.
Pretty front end is far from like a fully functioning web app, right?
Exactly. But the problem is to a non-technical person who doesn't know, it looks like it's fully done. You're like, wait, I can just go code this. Why would I ever pay for this application over there? And so in the buyer's mind, because most buyers are non-technical, they are living in a world where they think that they can get a viable alternative for a fraction of the price with an easy button called AI. And it's unfortunate because for us as sellers, it really creates an objection.
Yeah. It's interesting, right? Like, use this example maybe. Like when you ask chat to write an email for you, or to write an essay for you, or to do something for you, how would you grade that output? Is it ever 10 out of 10?
No.
Is it ever 9 out of 10? Is it ever 8 out of 10? Maybe it does a good job with some prompting and some finagling and some rework. Maybe I can borrow some of it. That's advantageous, but I would absolutely never use it to draft a message on my behalf and send.
Right.
I would just expect that quality to be lower. Having messed with Cursor and Devin, which were very powerful for us as a startup, we leveraged them to do code gen. But you also need a real developer to review that code. And then in a lot of these systems, you can't edit the code.
Right.
So what may have taken a coder 2 hours to do as a human might take a few seconds in Devin, but then it's like generating 8,000 lines of code that could have been 800 lines of code. So just we're not there, right, from a quality standpoint yet, to the point where we can rely on these systems without being involved heavily still. So
yeah, well, I think that there's a that and there's an even worse part of it, which is, to your point, the quality is great at first look, but then when you look at it and you're like, it's just magical that it just did this thing, and so you're kind of sitting there on your seat like, wow, I'm in awe of the fact that this just happened. And then you go and you actually look at it and you're like, that doesn't look right. Why is there an M dash there? It's like, why does it keep saying rhetorical questions? I don't want rhetorical questions in my copy. And so then you bring it to the coding level, and then so you do need an actual real developer who knows what they're looking at to review. Now, this gets to your point, is because the code is not concise and is not particularly perfect, you now have a human developer who has to review not the 800 lines, but say the 8,000 lines. And people who are not in the development world don't understand that reviewing code is a whole thing. It's you have to review the code, you have to test the code, you have to fix the code, you have to review it again, and that cycle is tough. And so AI generated code actually can create time debt for developers, where they could have just kind of small piece of it that was AI, a bunch of human stuff, and then kind of move it together. But you still need a human in the loop, is the bottom line out of all this.
And here's the crux, right? Oh, go ahead, sir.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, like I think Gartner said less than 5% of AI agents ever get into production, which means 19 out of 20 times someone's bought an AI agent, they're just experimenting with it. And so for things like rapid experimentation, for A/B testing, for surveilling swaths of data, for low-level tasks that I might give a VR or a virtual assistant, a VA, or a master coder with a Devin, right, can get a lot of work done quickly. But yeah, it's a cyborg experience, and one that might be creating debt, right, more so than value.
Yeah, and that's where it's a human perception problem just as much as it's a technical problem, which is, on one hand, the hype is so high, like I said before, but the deliverable is actually, like you said, like a 6 to 7 out of 10. But because the hype is high, there is a lack of awareness on the actual debt accumulated by the lack of the technology. And so it's a mind fuck where people over-index on the capability and under-index on the cost. And as a result, they make buying decisions and implementation decisions that will then have to be untangled in 3 to 6 months from now. And I see that in the GTM world right now. We're in this hype cycle with GTM agency owners where everybody wants to build what I have built, which is ReviOps. They want to use Supabase. They want to take, a lovable front end, and they want to use NAN to like glue it together. And I'm like, guys, do you think I'm stupid? Do you think I am just building this application because I just like spending $500,000? It's like, no, it's because you can't do that with AI code. I would have done it. I would have, and so it's just a weird world. We're living in this strange human reality where it's like the 1984 kind of like backwards world,
The best coders, there's like an art, it's an art, right? There's an artfulness, there's a tastefulness that they achieve in their code. There's an organizational aspect that, the bots just aren't that great at. So everything kind of has its place and its purpose. But I also agree, especially from a product marketing standpoint, and also just living in San Francisco. Like if you drive through downtown San Francisco on the 101, all you see is billboards with nomenclature and words that anyone outside of San Francisco would be like, what is that? Auth for your AI agents and, just like all sorts of crazy stuff. So it's weird. So much investment has come into this space, but it's getting weird. Is it going to plateau? We need a lot more data centers. We need a lot more power to get these things to the next level. And it's just a weird time to be alive. Like, let's be real.
It's really weird. Yeah. It's really weird. And I like to like kind of read into the overall vibe, like you're saying, and then the overall, even the word choices some of the people who are at the top are making. If you listen, I've listened to the Joe Rogan NVIDIA, the head of NVIDIA, and he was basically underselling AI. He was like, hey, I don't think it's as big as everyone thinks it is. And he's the head of NVIDIA. He's actually the guy who benefits the most. He's the guy selling the shovels. And then you listen to Sam Altman on some recent podcasts, and you can see he's almost shook. It's like he looks like he's seen something that is not good, and it's not good because it's like scary AI. It's not good because he's running out of fuel. He needs oil and gas. He needs gas centers to power the compute to then build it, and he can't do it fast enough, and he's realizing he's hitting a ceiling. And so it's like there's a diminishing return on what's truly capable when he should be doing this. I could be so wrong. Maybe 2 years from now we are in end of times, but I think that AI is a little hype, in my opinion. I could be crazy.
100%. I mean, if they're already going to have to compete with municipalities for fresh water to cool down data centers, they're going to build some crazy huge data center, right? That's 3 times the size of Manhattan or Meta's trying to. So power is a huge issue. And then the other indicator that you're probably correct there is OpenAI seeking government funds. You really only go do that once you've dried up all of your private investment opportunities, which they have, right? They've raised trillions of dollars or something at this point, and are doing 10 billion in revenue. They're pretty far off from a profitability path. And so maybe that doesn't matter if they have everyone in the world using their systems, but it's going to get weird. And I think, didn't Sam Altman, wasn't he like a nuclear fusion guy way back in the day?
I don't know.
So like we need like nuclear fusion power. We need like a lot of stuff to occur, I think, for this to really get to the next level. It just feels like we're not focusing, at least as kind of an entire industry, we're not focusing this technology maybe on the right things. Like we could probably pare down some of the usage constraints and the compute constraints by just limiting what we attempt to do with this stuff. I think probably if we're not going to have safe drinking water because we want to generate images on ChatGPT, we should have a conversation about whether that's right or wrong.
That's an interesting
what limitations
take.
should be in place.
This goes a little bit above my head in terms of like the resource constraints, but it's an interesting point you're making, though, philosophically, since we're both philosophy majors, that it has been untethered in the sense that we've essentially, or at least these big AI companies have, unleashed it onto the web, put it online, and said, just go do whatever the heck you want to do with it. There's no guardrails. I mean, really, like you create videos. Yeah, there's some like model guardrails and like don't create like false, videos and that kind of stuff. But really, but otherwise, you can do whatever you want with it. And I think that there was a really interesting podcast I watched a little while back, which I don't know if it was with Elon Musk, but he said something like, whoever was speaking said, we all promised back in the day, this is like back when people were really worried about AI safety, and I assume they still are, but they were especially worried at this moment. They said, we cannot put this online. And it's like, boom, here we are all online, and there's no restrictions. But anyways, I digress. I don't want to get too far off the beaten path.
No, I mean, we've all, my first R-rated movie I saw was Terminator 2, right? Back in like 1990. And now I have a philosophy degree right there that was signed by Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Really?
And now I work in AI. So
that's great.
Trippy. But yeah, I will say, for as much as I love using AI for fun, for research, for asking questions, right? So I don't have to call a lawyer for a billable hour, right? Or stuff like that. Like there's tons of awesome use cases. I use it every day. It's hurt the seller. AI has hurt the modern seller more than it's helped that person. For example, what channels do we use as an outbound seller? We have email, we have the phone, and we have LinkedIn. And then maybe we have like fringe stuff like going to events, right? Or trying to get a badge and going on site and meeting someone face to face somehow, or getting them a coffee or a beer or whatever. It's the old school stuff, golf, right? Whatever. But those are like the channels. Carrier pigeons. What other channels do we have to connect with someone? Unfortunately, email, like the bots have taken over spray and pray and made email like the conversion efficacy just tank. No matter what message I send to someone via email, even if I type it out the old fashioned way, and even if I send it to one person at a time, the likelihood that a spam filter catches it is much higher. The likelihood that person just ignores it because it's a cold email and they get thousands of them every day. Like all of our traditional sales channels, all of the channels available to us have been saturated with AI slop. Phone calls too now. People are getting the bots to call them, which I didn't even know was legal, but it's happening. LinkedIn messages. You can go get an AI SDR to spray and pray LinkedIn for you. They just changed their policy so that everyone now only gets 100 credits a month instead of 700 or 800 or whatever it was. So because of the high volume of AI spray and pray into all of our channels, all of those channels are now implementing new policy to try to lower that volume. How do you get through the noise is way more difficult than it's ever been. And we have one thing to thank for that, and it's AI.
Well, this is why, so I have a very deep thought on this, and I think you're 1,000% right. And it's refreshing to talk to somebody who's not so deep in the GTM world I'm in. I'm in all of the AI, GTM, low-code, automation, WhatsApp groups. And there's a whole culture there that is very interesting, which we could get into. But the thing is... The Vibers?
The Vibers, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The go-to-market engineers. Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. And so there's this whole world. And the thing is like, when it comes to building all these systems, they truly believe that it is get a piece of technology, grab a list, let AI write some copy, and push a button. The problem is that people don't get it. You can do that, and you can actually get something to happen. The question is it sustainable? Does it actually generate revenue? Are you going to actually help your brand in the long run, or are you going to burn your brand in the long run? And what people don't get, and especially this new age of like pushing buttons, is that what works also happens to be what cuts through the noise. And it's the only thing that will be sustainable long term, which is deep understanding of the ideal customer profile. And the problem is you have these GTM agencies. I call them GTM Ponzi schemes. And I'm saying this with love because I am a GTM agency and I have a 1,300 person group teaching GTM agencies how to build their agency. So I want to be clear, like I am a part of this, but I want to say I am not this Ponzi scheme piece, which I despise, which is they're doing all the things you're describing. They're incentivized to get more customers. So they go and take on random customers all over the place. And as a result, they don't deeply know the ICP. They don't deeply cultivate the copy. They use the AI written stuff and they blast everybody. And then they burn through the client's TAM. The client doesn't know better because they just want the hype. And then they run out of results. Results tank. And then the client churns and they go find the next poor schlep who just got thrown under the bus.
Crazy spray and pray.
That's it. And so the key thing here that I just want I want to beat this into the world, is that amazing ICP research pulling, remember disqualification, right? What your old mentor said is like, we want to disqualify. That means build your list, but then cull it down to the perfect ICP. And then when you come up with your messaging, no AI, you don't need AI. Just spin tax a couple of variations into it, so you can get past the spam filters. Send it relatively low volumes, and perfectly target it with the perfect offer. That does not happen with AI. You're not going to do that with AI. It comes with human discernment, human understanding, and I just cannot belabor that enough. So I 100% agree.
And here's why. Like when I was going to in one of my last enterprise roles, I had a book of business. Here's your 50 accounts for the year. These are your accounts that you need to go create opportunity in. These are the only ones we care about. This is your list, right? So you can't really afford to just start spraying and praying if you're up market. Down market, I think probably short-term gains, right? Long-term losses. People still do it because it must work to some extent. But yeah, at large, it's impacted the entire field and it won't work. You can't keep spraying and praying the same crappy messages to the same companies and expect a better result. But for me, and this is what I'm bullish on, like AI is great, right? At looking at data sets. It can look at my CRM and write a synopsis of former engagements. It can look at publicly available data, like what Aomni was doing, and find cool evidence of opportunity. Where does the best information, strategic information, come from if you're a seller? It comes from a human. It comes from a champion, someone who's really alive in the business, living the day to day. And so my first act when I got to all 50 of those accounts is I built a list of former director and level above employees that used to work at those accounts in the last year, but hadn't yet. Because for me, I get a lot better conversion rate when I reach out to former employees and say, hey, I was investigating your old place. I saw you were there for 4 or 5 years. I'm thinking about applying for a job there. Can I pick your brain for a couple of minutes on what it was like? And they almost always are going to start.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Like you get so much information from ex-employees. Not everyone's disgruntled. Most are actually very professional and don't give you like proprietary info. But if I call a sales manager that was there for 5 years and just got laid off, probably he's gonna be like, yeah, what do you want to know? Don't work at this place. Oh, well, I'm still thinking of applying. What CRM are they using? Like what were the issues like that you guys were facing? Like what happened? Like give me a story, right? That I can latch on to, because it's with that proprietary internal information that the bots can't find, with which I can make my strongest play. So
yeah,
that's why 100%. I wear the hat, man. Yeah, the best salespeople are still finding out how to get information from other humans and not just relying on the bots.
Well, that's 1,000% right, which is what I tell everybody when you're building a business, when you're going into a market, whether you're starting an agency, the first thing that you need to do, this is step one, is find out who your ICP is, build your top 100 list, like you said, 50. They have to be accessible. You have to be able to talk to them and mom test them. If anybody hasn't read the mom test, I've been just preaching to the choir. It's just like literally ask them, what's your biggest problem? What are you seeing in the world? What solutions are you seeing work? Why do they work for you? Why do they not work for you? Why do you want to try something new? And just become interested. Just ask obvious kind of fact finding and perception finding questions so you can deeply understand these people. And every time I've launched an offer, a product, a sales pitch, a sales deck, a copy, it comes from cold calls and Zoom calls like this, where I do record everything. I will use AI to synthesize the keywords, but then I'm just looking for keywords matches, and I'm looking, and it's just also my human brain just going, is there a trend here? And I call it the 1,000 conversations, and nobody wants to hear that. I remember in my 20s, I bought a book. It was like How to Do Market Research. And I was like, how do you know what's going on? And after like now doing so many businesses and selling millions in deals, it's just a very obvious answer. You go talk to 1,000 people about the subject and you become the subject matter expert.
Yeah.
Period.
And you get a lot more information doing that than you would going online and Googling around or asking ChatGPT, right? Which is just an accumulation of the internet, which has a lot of bad information in it too, right? So yeah, trustworthy data is always going to come from humans. And yeah, man, keep fighting the good fight. It's really important that I think, especially new sales reps, understand that, right? Like when I think about what it must be like to be both my parents were school teachers. I think about what it must be like for a teacher in primary education these days. And is the use of ChatGPT, is that helping students like in high school be smarter? Or is it a crutch that they're using to do the work for them? And then are they not learning how to do those things? I think the same goes for the professional world, where in sales, if we rely too much on the bots to do our strategic work for us, again, the quality of that strategy will be worse, rest assured. And so, yeah, you still have to have hard and soft sales skills. You still need to be able to be, a person that's likable. You still need to ask smart questions in real time and be a good listener. Everyone should go read Dale Carnegie books, right? Like How to Make Friends and Influence People. In my opinion, still, even though it's probably 100 years old, like the greatest sales book that's ever been written, because it gets at the relationship building aspects, right? Like if I go into a meeting where maybe I have 20 people, I've had meetings. I closed a deal at the Mayo Clinic where I had a meeting with over 100 people in it. So that was a little bit more difficult. But where you earn points in the game is calling people and remembering their name and remembering their function and making them relevant to the conversation in real time. And these are the skills that salespeople really still need to develop, where I'm concerned they're not now, maybe.
Yeah, no doubt. I think I hate the word double click. I will not use that word.
Put a bow on it.
Put a bow on this. Thank you. I need some expression that made sense. Is that I have a hourly rate when hedge funds call me of around $3,000 an hour when they call me, because I'm a subject matter expert in the oil and gas industry on water management for disposals, and the question is like, wait, what, Ben? I thought you were a CRO, and I thought you did all this other stuff. What are you talking about? It sounds almost like I'm making shit up at this point.
That's cool.
This is why. I personally cold called every single disposal well in Texas, in New Mexico, in North Dakota, and I had conversations with all the owners. And also, we built a data set. It's a very deep thing, but we scraped all the data from publicly available data, and we analyzed where all the water was coming and going, and we sold it as a SaaS product called Source Water. And so
cool,
over the course of this time, I became kind of an insider in that world. And so then companies would call me and say, hey, can we pick your brain? And they would, and I remember just joking. I was like, it's $3,000 an hour, because I didn't think they would say yes. And they were like, okay. And I was like, that started my little consulting gig. I would get like one a week for about a year.
That's awesome though, man. That's 12 grand a month right there.
I know, it was great.
A few hours of work. It's living the dream.
But why did that happen? Like, right? So like the question is to just distill like what made me that valuable. It's because I had all the conversations with the people nobody wanted to call. That's it. And it's like, that is I think everyone talks about copywriting or offer creation or, how persuasive you are or, how good the product is. I'm like, the most important thing is, can you have a human conversation and listen and deeply synthesize across all conversations reality? And that's discernment, and that is just understanding. And if you can do that, you can do anything on planet Earth, in my opinion. That's the true skill, honestly.
Yes, dude. Yes. It's all about becoming a subject matter expert in something, right? And that only happens through a lot of experience. Like when we were building out PandaDoc, it wasn't an enterprise grade product for the first 5 years. And we kind of maybe didn't know why big companies weren't coming to us and getting off DocuSign and wanting to do this and that. Over the course of thousands of demos and discovery calls that I had, right, in those first 5 years, I started to keep a list of product requests. And it was sure thing over years, we kind of all learned together that in order to become enterprise grade in the eyes of an enterprise buyer, it's not really about all the features you have. It's more about your back end. Is there an API that doesn't lack parity with the AI? Do you have two-factor authentication? Is there single sign-on protocols? Do you have all the compliance and legal certifications required in case someone challenges the e-sign in Australia or in Africa? Do you have language localization? Do you have an SLA that guarantees uptime 99.99% if something goes wrong with the credit back? If not, so there's a lot that needs to be done just to sell a thing to a big company that we learned through the customers we were losing, sharing that information with us in real time, which was painful, but then we'd go build it and then we'd win them back. And that was just a process that played out over 9 or 10 years before we finally started closing really, really big deals.
It's a good point, because I think that people see like an application and they go, oh, that's easy. I could go build that. Look at, they're worth $1 billion. Let me go build that. And they don't realize when they jump into it that it's those 1,000 little edge cases that come up in the sales cycle and the sales process and the delivery that actually is what creates the product development priority list. And so they see the GUI and they see the user interface and they go, okay, they do this thing. I could do that. But then when they jump into it, they don't realize that there's a mountain, or I should say an iceberg that they don't see. And it's interesting because I've said this before, but my old business partner ran into the founder of Waze, the GPS app, at a large conference in Houston. And he asked them, you have a pretty standard, how did you compete against Apple and Google? Like how? Like you small
UGC,
Israeli
community,
company,
right? Wow.
Well, what he said was, this was his answer. He said, everyone could see what we were doing at any moment, but they couldn't see why we were doing the next thing, because there was 1,000 things we had done before, and we knew all the edge cases. And so then the next thing we would do would be 3 to 6 months ahead. And so we were always ahead of the adoption curve because we knew where our ball was going. And so that's where it goes to show, like, the devil is always in the detail, whether it's in conversations, whether it's in product development, and nothing is ever as obvious or simple as it seems. And I think people are looking for easy buttons today.
Yeah.
And there is no easy button. And I hate to
But
sell
we're
it to
promising
people.
we're promising them, I think, that it exists now, right? Like there are easy buttons. Just go press them instead. And yeah, you look at a thing like a PandaDoc. We had hundreds of engineers working on stuff all the time. A huge product roadmap. There's so many little things. And to build a native document editor that can download to PDF and Word, where that has inline commenting or red lines. Like there's so many workflow things, and then where those documents get stored and who has permissions to see them. Like so many things that are all interconnected, where it's pretty arrogant to look at a big SaaS company and say, yeah, I could just build that, right? It's just slapping an e-sign field on a document. Like how hard could it be? And I've seen posts like that, which I'm just like, yeah, go for it, buddy. Like, yeah, good luck to you.
Exactly. Well, okay, so I know we're running out of time here. I like to ask one final question of all the guests, and I think this is actually probably the most important question of all, which is, if you had to leave planet Earth with one message, and they looked back and this is the only thing they would ever see about you, they don't know any of your background, they don't know where you come from, they just know that this is the message. What message do you leave with mankind?
Wow. Geez. All right. So wait, I'm leaving Earth, and the message is for humans that are still on Earth or future humans?
It's they
Sorry.
come across this clip, and all these they don't see the rest of the conversation. They don't see anything you've ever done in your life. They don't know your name. They just hear these words. What do you want your fellow human being at that time in 5,000 years from now to know?
I would just say, no matter who you are, no matter what your greatest strength is, it's also your greatest weakness.
That's a thinker.
Hmm.
I almost want to ask a follow-up question, but I don't want to ruin it. You know? Okay.
I
Well,
just
I'll leave
feel
it at that.
strongly as a philosopher that, yeah, life is a double-edged sword, and there's always a balance in nature and in the world that sometimes, yeah, right? Like, you could pick anything. Is agriculture good or bad? It's good in that it fed, a huge growing population of humans. Is this many humans on the earth good or bad? Earth might be dying now. So, yeah, maybe an extreme
I hear
example.
you.
But
Yeah, there's always a light in the dark. There's always a yin and a yang. There's always a good and a bad. There's always, I get it. Yeah. There's always a balance.
I was amazing in my role. Like, we're talking about PandaDoc for 10 years. It's something I did 60 to 80 hours a week. That took a lot from my life. Was I good at anything else during that time? No, I had to divide and conquer with my wife, who took care of the kids, took care of the house, took care of everything else, because I was so centrally focused on being great at one thing. That meant I was not so great at anything else.
Well, where can people find you online? So if they want to reach you, where are you found?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn, Flash, OG Sales Josh. Find me there. I'm trying to get off other social media platforms at this point and just focus on business. You can also email me, Josh at Losing by Design. And then, I'll be launching a new kind of service in the coming months. So if you're an AE out there or in sales leadership and want to chat, I'm not as expensive to talk to here as Ben. So,
What does losing by design mean to you?
in short, a lot of my closed won opportunities in my career came from opportunities that I had previously lost. So yes, it's a play on winning by design, which is a common, rubric for sales leaders now. But it's also in that there's a right way to lose. A lot of us, I would say actually most of us, if not all of us, probably lose more opportunities than we win. If you have over a 50% closing percentage, kudos to you. My guess is maybe you're in some kind of inbound SMB thing, but still, kudos to you. Most of us lose more than we win. What are we doing with the ones we lose? Too many times do I see reps just kind of move on to the next one, put it back in the CRM, and they're not really infatuated with knowing why they lost. So anyways, I'm helping build a qualitative research firm that's going to help our clients do qualitative research on all of their closed lost opportunities and help inform them why, right? Because when you know why you lost, yes, you can go back and win those individual deals back, but it also impacts how you move as an organization, from your marketing campaigns to how you train salespeople to all the rest.
How you build the products, everything. Yeah, it's fascinating. Well, good luck in all that. And for anybody listening, we're going to have show notes down in the description. So if you guys want to, follow them, go find those links. And obviously, really appreciate anyone listening. So thank you so much for being on the show. We will be signing out again. Ben Reed here with the Next Gen Sales Leader Podcast. See you guys.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.